watched some of most of it, aye.
I was funny, I was.
Reckons I was 20 years before my time, he reckons. What's that? What program's that? Aye, 20 years before my time, he reckons, with Clive, isn't it?
It's not when you actually look inside and see your photograph.
Yeah, the photograph, I know that, mate, yeah, fucking hell. I've aged a bit since then, haven't I? What season was this? What was the title season, wasn't it?
It looked very familiar in its branding, mate. That did when I looked at it.
The what?
It looked very familiar in its branding when I saw that. Then the front cover look and all that.
Yeah.
Very. Right. So all right. Yours all right. Yours all right. Zach Blue, lovely. Happy days. So we're back at Aberdare, Dai.
Yeah, we certainly are.
It's like buses.
I was actually back here recently for the first game of the season. Yeah.
Yeah. And how does it feel when you're back nowadays? 16 years on? 16?
Yeah, 2008, 2009. I got a couple of sort of revisits. Came back as sort of director of football with Lee Jarman and Lee Phillips for a short while. Came back as chairman for a short while. I don't think we'll ever recapture the season 2008, 2009. I think if you just scripted it in a book of fiction, people probably wouldn't have believed it. You know, from knocking the old ground down with a bulldozer, with Ross Phillips saying, "Oh, you know, we'll build a new ground, 120,000 quid." No idea how much it cost eventually, but it was an awful lot more than that. And then, you know, putting a squad together, bringing yourself in and people of your calibre and end up winning the league at the end of the season on the last day. I don't think you could have scripted it, really.
You're shifting over loads of big stuff there. So the grounds, because I remember coming here as an opposing coach, and pitch was always a decent size and everything, wasn't it? But you'd come up those steps, and either side of the steps was just a grass bank, and then we'd come through, and it was porta cabins, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tiny changing rooms, and you know, so people who've been here several times wouldn't have a clue what was here before, would they? But I remember coming first day of pre-season, the porta cabins were gone, and you were putting the foundations in.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I've heard a lot, we're going to do this, we're going to do that in Welsh football, and you think, yeah, it doesn't happen. You know, I'm from Llanrymney, for 30 years we heard they're going to build a stand. The stand is only now built.
Yeah, yeah.
But I turn up that first day, and there's the clubhouse foundations being done, and you start thinking, he is serious, this nutter.
Yeah, you got nutter a bit right there.
We were talking to somebody off camera the other week when we recorded elsewhere. You're like Nicky Tucker, I think. You've both got something in common. I know you and Nicky got on well when you were managers and that.
We did.
But like, there's no glass ceiling in your brain, is there? There's no like, oh, we can't achieve that. Now, how does Dai Morgan come into Aberaman, as he was then, now Aberdare, in Division 2, lower part of Division 2, weren't they, at the time of the old Welsh League system, and think, you didn't just say to me, we'll go to the Welsh Premier League. You told me we'd go to Europe, right? What is it in your makeup that makes you go, yeah, we fucking can, and mean it?
Well, it's a great question, and maybe it's naivety, maybe it's stupidity. I think a lot of it's business has taught me actually that if you plan well and strategize well, then you can achieve almost what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
And I'd been manager here late '99 till 2002. We had that great win over Aberystwyth in the Welsh Cup. And I came back as sponsor. It was 2005 from memory, and Dai Abu was manager, and we didn't get off to the greatest of start. I remember Richard Rowlands, the chairman then at the time, saying to me, you know, we need to change the manager, and would you take it on as a caretaker for 3 or 4 weeks? And that was 2005, and you know, lo and behold, 4 years later we win the title. Yeah. In terms, I was very clear in my own mind that, you know, having the business at the time and having that financial option available to put some money into the club, and you know, it started off very small. I remember saying it was a £30,000 sponsorship deal, and Brian Freer saying it's nothing like that whatsoever. I think by the end it was more like £250,000. I think over the 4 years or 4.5 years. Yeah. I think that's probably a modest modest sort of estimate. I think it probably was a bit more than that. But I was lucky as well in that one season. Ross Phillips and Paul Taylor shared the same ambition. And this club is a proud club. It was 117 years old at the time. It'd been in the Football League back in the day. It had massive crowds for local derbies against what was then Aberdare Town and Aberaman Athletic. And I came here in 1987 as a player. It was my first senior club, and spent 3 years. Went off on my travels and had a half decent career, and came back. And I don't know. Part of me's always been about trying to prove people wrong. And I just, as you say, the pitch was excellent. I think rumours were it was one of the biggest playing surfaces around. It was the same size as the Emirates, allegedly at one time, and we put the floodlights in to get the 500 lux to narrow the pitch to enable us to do that. It was a collective ambition, probably a little bit of, do you know what, let's give it a go, let's see what we can do, let's see where it takes us. If nothing else, we'll leave a great legacy with a lovely ground. But it's interesting you say that about pre-season, because I actually used it to my advantage in signing players. I remember a couple of times thinking, and saying to players, we are serious, we are going to build a new ground. And in many ways, the development of the ground facilitated the building of the squad, because it showed intent.
Yeah.
And it also, for me, was a statement of intent in many ways that, we had, as you say, 2 porta cabins, one which got broken into regularly. We had a bit of a shanty covering a bit of concrete where people could at least keep dry in the winter. And to turn it into what we have now, which, when we built it was certainly Premier League compliant, apart from the lights which went up 3 days later.
Just clarify that for us, Dai. What was the reason that ENTO Aberaman didn't get promoted? What was the official reason?
I think that's well documented. At the end of the day, the pitch inspection or the facilities inspection that we had was failed because the lights weren't up. Clearly, this was a project that went on throughout that season. I think our first game at home was Ninian Athletic, from memory.
It was.
And I always remember their chairman being very, very praiseworthy, because we had a sponsors lounge here and made sure he looked after visiting officials. I remember Gavin Chesterfield saying to me once, this is where Barry needs to get back to. This is what,
I remember when he said it, yeah.
Yeah, this should be a benchmark for Barry Town, and you look what they've achieved ever since, and look what Gavin's achieved since. He's had a terrific career. And, we failed the inspection, but what was absolutely clear, we were told that if we had appealed, we'd have won the appeal, because clearly you can't put floodlights up mid-season. 2, the ground can't take it, and 3, from a safety perspective. And in many ways, we had a conversations as a committee, because I was clear, I was vice chairman as well as manager, and we talked about what kind of budget we needed. I think the Welsh Premier League then was 18 or 20 teams, and we had a conversation about how much you needed to survive, how much you needed to, mid-table, and we had a conversation about how much it would cost, to be challenging for a European place. I remember the conversation really well. I remember saying to the committee, it's £2,000 to stay up. It's probably £4,000 mid-table and £6,000 a challenge for a European place, which back then was probably the kind of budgets that were flying around. You wouldn't do it now for that, of course.
Yeah.
It's massively changed.
Yeah, that's trying to get up in the Cymru South now.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, and I wasn't around. I was actually in London. I think that's the part that perhaps frustrated me. I was in London. I was in bed because I'd been working and I'd been away and travelling, and I woke up the next morning to a decision made by committee that they weren't going to appeal. Having said that, I do believe that was then overturned, and then overturned again subsequently. So,
how does that happen?
Which bit?
How does it get overturned first?
Well, obviously, once that decision was made, I decided to end my association from a sponsor's perspective. Bitterly disappointed. Everything I worked for, we'd worked for, the club had worked for, the blood, sweat, tears. Forget the money. It's the and for me, it's the integrity of signing the players. We're about going into the Welsh Premier League. Certainly, Richard Ryan mentioned that in his interview with you.
He did.
It was a huge part of him signing for the club, and really, I felt my credibility as a manager and a vice chairman, as a sponsor, was brought into question. And I didn't get involved in the subsequent debates, but I did hear that on a presentation night they made a decision as a committee they would appeal, but then subsequently didn't. And that's about as much as I know, really. And
So you weren't even at the presentation?
No, I wasn't invited to the presentation.
You weren't invited, so what wasn't your decision then?
No.
Would you have gone?
I don't know. It was
Very raw back then, wasn't it?
They were tough times. It was raw, and it was in the press. It was all over the press.
Yeah.
I did a number of interviews. I tried to be as positive as I could and put a positive spin on it. Ultimately, you have to go the democratic route, and if you're a club that's run by a committee, then you have to be bound by those decisions. And that decision was made. I look back, and you talked about the fact, I wanted European football, and people laughed at me and constantly laughed that was possible. And that season, I think Bridgend finished 4th or 5th to us, and look what they've done ever since.
People laughed at them.
Yeah, and I also look at, I think Taswell were 4th or 5th with a Mr. Sampson's manager, and look what he went on to achieve in life afterwards.
Yeah.
Taking England to the World Cup semi-finals.
Absolutely.
And that year in North Wales, Bala went up. Yes, Bala are a very well structured club and well-run club and well invested in. But ultimately, they've been in Europe a number of times. So, was it a pipe dream, or was it an evolution of the ambition? Who knows? And a lot of water under the bridge since, as you say, it's 16 years ago now. But to this day, I enjoy my playing career, I enjoy my management career, and every time I come back here, I get a great welcome. The work that's going on here is fabulous. I really hope they get it right on the park, because Ian Pearce is doing an absolutely superb job behind the scenes and making this club tick again. And it's a pleasure to walk into this club tonight and see the work that's going on here in pre-season. And I really do hope we've got a good start to the season this year. Hopefully, that this is a legacy that people look back and say, you know what, it's a nice stadium, it's a nice ground. And hopefully it helps attract players.
You were obviously, understandably angry, bitter when it was all going on. And how has it been for you from afar? Because especially you moved out of the area for a long time. Now you're back. We'll talk about what you're doing back in South Wales in a bit. But how did it feel seeing the slow, gradual drop down the system that the club has done since all that effort? Because the ground, we spoke about it when we came here with Kevin. It's brilliant. I always love coming back. But as that team is going down and down and down and down the leagues, how's that felt from one of the people that obviously made this all happen?
One of the things you can't take away, guys, is memories. I always said to people, without memories, you haven't had much of a life, really, because it's memories that we talk about. We wouldn't be sat here talking today if it wasn't for memories. And I look back fondly, I look back to that whole season. I look back to putting a squad together, a management team together. You probably remember the conversation we had in this room with the flip chart. I think you led it, if you remember right.
Oh, was it you were a flip chart banker as well? We were
said I was amongst all this dust.
Hang on, I'm going to have to clarify this. I'm going to have to clarify this now. There was a directive that had been brought in, wasn't there, at the start of the season, and it was the referees were going to be extremely harsh on any bad language whatsoever, weren't they? Not just aimed at referees, which was obviously already in the laws, but anything. And of course, the panic was, we got a lot invested, money, time, a lot of, trying to get promoted, that we could be at Newport YMCA away, 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go, and all of a sudden we're down to 8 men because people have shouted a swear word. So we did a session with the flip chart and everything, and I think I was kind of testament to how you were as the leader, really. It was no stone left unturned, was there? It was right. That's going to happen. You can either embrace that and come out the right side of it and play against 9 men, or you can be the team that's down to 9 men because you're all losing your head and swearing, and the referee's sending everyone off.
There's plenty of referees that would.
Yeah, I think it probably worth coming back to that. I think part of that season was about the organisation, and I always remember you turning up for pre-season and talking about, these boys are not going to do any running, or they think they're not going to do any running. And we were training up at Aberdare at the time, and,
that's right.
And you just got the balls out, and they ran and ran and ran without knowing it. I always remember you get a famous quote, and I probably won't get this word for word, but I think it comes
Is this
from...
the Mourinho thing?
It's the Mourinho one, and the quote is something along the lines of, a grand pianist doesn't run round his piano, he plays it.
Piano,
or words that
not
effect.
far off, yeah. That was his fitness coach, wasn't it?
Yeah, and 2008 that would have been when he first came here, but I think we'll come back to that, because I think that's an important...
But you mentioned putting the team together, Dai, because obviously there was a lot of people off the pitch that did a lot, but the team ultimately won that title for you. So how did you go? Because you finished 4th the year before?
Yeah,
4th or 5th?
Was it 6th the year before that, I think?
So I always remember you making the point before that season started that every player that you brought into the club that summer had either finished higher than Aberaman the year before, or they'd been playing in a higher level of football the year before. Yeah. Did that happen by accident, or was that something you felt you needed? That experience, a
couple of things. You mentioned off camera earlier about managing a younger generation now, and we had quite an older squad that season.
Yeah, it was.
I certainly felt, and interestingly, Ian French, remember Ian French, the big centre-half, he was a catalyst in many ways for the change of culture, the kind of player we brought in. I was away, I think I was out in Barcelona or somewhere, when I managed to get Ian to sign for the club, and he really was the catalyst. He was the one that sort of tempted Neil Collins, and you know my view of Neil, and he's one of the very best goalkeepers I've ever seen in Welsh football, and certainly ever worked with. And we'll come down to my favourite 11 later, and there'll be a struggle between the two goalkeeper slots. But people like Chris Summers, probably one of the best goal scorers the Welsh League or Welsh system's ever seen. Matty Davis alongside him. But then you also had, the Anthony Taylors this world, local lad,
that's right.
Great ambition. John Phillips, local lad, both their parents obviously massively invested in putting the club together. Yeah. We brought in Danny Street, and I remember Gavin Chesterfield said, I don't rate Danny. Well, I'll tell you what, he was absolutely superb for us that season. Dan Hooper up and down the left wing. We brought Rob Blatchford in for his pace later on in the season. Yeah. We pinched Crutchy from Tom Pentra. Great centre-half, great feet, knew how to play, would fit the modern game extremely well.
Yeah.
But I've been reflecting since we had this initial conversation about this, and one of the key signings for me, I think, and perhaps he was probably one of the last signings as well, was Geraint Passmore. And we brought Geraint in, and we brought him in from a Welsh Premier League side, I think from memory, I can't remember which one.
Aberystwyth.
And he played number 10 role before number 10 role was fashionable.
Do you remember where we did it, the first night?
I can't, but I remember I was saying to him, all I want you to do, Geraint, is just play in between the lines. Yeah,
it was back when we'd obviously gone to the wing-back system, and it was back when the logical or the normal thinking was two what they'd call number 8s nowadays. One for you there, kids. The number 8s. And then what they nowadays call a CDM. We went 2 number 8s and a 10. We did it at Port Talbot. Do you remember against Nicky Tucker's Port Talbot in the Cup?
In the Welsh Cup.
And
we were terrific.
We didn't win.
We were terrific that night.
But he shit himself that night, didn't he?
He did. and the other South African kid he goal, Christian Rogers, and he was he was absolutely terrific. I mean, he won absolutely worldly save.
Yeah.
But going back to your original question about how it felt since, I've been in East Yorkshire for 5 years. I've been in Surrey before that, and watched from afar. I did come back for a short while and with the two Lees, and I always remember trying to sign Christian Doidge and offering 50 quid a game, and he's gone on to have a bit of a career since, hasn't he, in fairness to him? Good centre forward. And came back briefly as chairman and brought a few people with me who I thought, one was a lawyer and one was quite a senior business development person, and I think at that time that the challenge here was that you had people who were more interested in making the youth team work and making sure the youth team had the right kit and refreshments on match days rather than looking at the more holistic strategic view of the club as a whole and looking at the direction of the football club and obviously the component parts of it in terms of the teams that played here. It's been disappointing. I've tried to I've come back and watched games over the few years. Welsh football's become pretty unforgiving, I think. There's more money in Welsh football perhaps there's ever been before. I think there's more ambition in Welsh football than there's ever been. I was looking at the division that Aberdare and Llanrumney are in now, and actually it's the division Abergavenny Town are in, and they're all Welsh league sides. You know, so and well, I think they're third tier possibly. So I think Welsh football's got more difficult. It's probably more difficult to get out of the divisions these days. Certainly getting into the Welsh Premier League now is one hell of a challenge financially for anybody. To even survive at that level now is going to be a big ask. So yeah, it's been disappointing. I mentioned earlier the MPS. I think the work that's going on here in terms of the behind the scenes, the back office stuff, in many ways is setting the club up for a great future. They've also started the season quite well this year. I chat with Kevin before the comeback game the other week, and he certainly seems to be very focused on what he's trying to achieve. And it would be lovely to see the club go on a 2, 3, 4 year promotion run and get back to where they deserve. And that's all hope for that. But there needs to be a period of stability, a period of consolidation, really. That trend of getting relegated has to be stopped. I think it will be this year, in fairness, and you have to rebuild from there, because, you know, I came to Aberaman in 1987, and we were third or fourth tier of the Welsh League at the time. So the club's been down there previously. Maybe the club's been spoilt in 2008, 2009. And you know, let's be honest. The subsequent years thereafter, under various managers, you know, there were some very, very good players at this club. You know, David Goff, you know, who was part of that setup with England in 2015-16 when they got the World Cup semi-final. You know, you had Leighton James, rest in peace, Leighton. You know, here for a short while. Although I will tell a little story. I remember Leighton phoning me after he'd been dismissed by the committee, and I was in the office in Cardiff, and the phone goes, he went, Dai, Leighton, yeah? All right, Leighton. Why didn't you tell me about them, he said.
You know, I never met him before he was here.
Great man.
Before he was here. And for whatever reason, he's given my number to talk to about players, because he didn't know anyone at this level, did he? Why would he? He's never worked at this level. And he didn't know anyone, right? And I remember... can't remember who I was managing at the time, but I was doing all right. And I had a phone call, not from Leighton, from, in Dilwyn. Would I be interested in coming in as his number 2? Like, what world are you living in? I'm going to leave a first team manager's job to do that.
But they've got some stellar managers here to attract, you know, Lee Jarman. Lee Jarman is the best centre-half or emerging centre-half in Welsh football for years. Lee Phillips has scored against Porto in the Champions League. I mean, you know, the club's attracted some really, really high-profile managers.
Do you know one thing I'd say on that, though, right? Because me being a young manager at the time, not anymore, working my way up after having been here, I went across to Ceiliog, Cymru and Celtic, did okay. It used to piss me off who used to get appointed here, you know.
I know.
Because I used to be looking at it going, well, he's never managed a football team before. Why is he getting that job? And then wouldn't work out, someone else would move on. Because, you know, back then you got ambition, and this place always sort of meant something to me. And I was just like, well, he's never managed a football team. Why is he getting, like... That was the only criticism I had, is that the big names came in, but nobody who'd ever done it before successfully. Do you know what I mean? And I know you'd never done it before successfully, and before I went to Crossy, I'd never done it before successfully. But time after time after time after time after time, there was just appointments here that I was thinking, look, they may go on to be great coaches, but they've never done it before. Why are they gambling again on someone who's never done it before, you know?
You might remember a very famous quote, and it was in that session which you did around the rule changes and the focus of referees, and John Phillips piped up and said,
no, that's not like John.
Problem with you, Dai, he said, you're trying to run it like a business. You remember that? Yeah. And I said, it is a business, John, funny enough. And I think, I hadn't done it as a manager previously, but I think my business experience helped. In terms of, I listened to Richard Ryan's interview about when I signed him, and you know, he said, Dai said, I have to go away and think about it, but we know exactly what the decision maker was, and so I think I tried to apply some of those basic principles of business, really. And you know, I know Clive, you know, there was two extremes of the view on Clive. You know, I thought he did a great job for us that season, not sorting me out probably in terms of my behaviours, but one of the things he always said was stick to the plan. And the number of games we won in the last 10 minutes that year, which I think was partly down to the plan, but an awful lot of that was down to the pre-season and the preparation and the fitness levels.
I think that was his biggest role in the club, was keeping you on an even keel.
Yeah.
And not always football reasons either.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly, we beat Caerleon 1-0 in the League Cup early in the season. And we were top of the league and we hadn't lost a game in any competition. And we came in here and one of the committee had a right pop. It's shit, it's this, it's that, and rah, rah, rah. And it was those times that I just felt Clive's cool head around you. Because you could go, fuck your club, stick it up your arse, and Clive would just keep
I had Mellor
on the level. Do you know what I mean? He would just keep you on a level. And I think that was probably his greatest.
Yeah, we worked together in business since, and he's actually published 2 books on sort of neurology and
fascinating guy.
And how the brain functions. And actually, part of his book, his first book, I think it is, he makes a lot of reference to the time here.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about the Goalkeeper game, which I'm sure we'll come on to later, because we changed tactics that night. Well, you weren't there, probably. But we changed tactics that night, and it almost worked. But when I look back at that Goalkeeper game, I more than once said, the reason we lost that was my fault. I failed to notice in the euphoria what was going on around me, because we'd gone 3-1 up and Richard Ryan had scored, and he described the big slide in front of the dugouts on his interview with you, and 3-1 up, there was probably about 800 or 900 people there midweek, very atmospheric ground, because you got the cliffs and the mountains behind it, and they brought a lad on, Danny Thomas, was it maybe? And Anthony Taylor just couldn't cope with him, and I did not notice that Anthony's legs had gone. So in reality, that defeat that night was primarily my fault for not making a change quick enough and mitigating that threat that they brought on, and they scored 4 in 12 minutes, I think, to win 5-3 or something like that.
It wasn't even quarter of an hour, no.
And that was a tough car journey home that evening, because we had changed the tactics, and it came about from a conversation on the way down in the car, and Clyde said, because we lost them up here 2-0, if you remember, in the home game. And he said the full-backs play really, really high. And we had a fair bit of pace in the team at that time. And we called it the red box game. And basically the instruction was simple, that Rob Blatchford was playing on the right, can't remember who was on the left, Danny Hooper probably, or maybe John Phillips or somebody. And what we said to anybody was, right, the minute we got possession, the two of you just head straight for that red box, the red box being the penalty area, 18 yards either in both corners. Like that training game where you put cones in all 4 corners and say get the ball in there. And that's what we did. We reverted for a long ball game that night to try and catch it, and it worked absolutely unbelievably well until. But I think the thing you got to think about then, and I reflected on that many times since, is that actually our game plan wasn't around that. Our fitness levels probably weren't around playing at that intensity. We were
covering those distances.
Absolutely, it was very much about keeping possession and triangles and moving the game incrementally up the field. And I think probably we tired more quickly because of the way and the emotion of the night. It was a top of the table game, good crowd there, and I just failed to spot that Anthony Taylor was tired.
I was surprised, Dai, that the senior lads out on that pitch didn't do a better job of managing the game, because I know what you mean about legs going and everything else, but that's not 4 goals in 12 minutes, is it? That I was just surprised that night some of the identity of some of those people out on the pitch didn't kind of when they got one, just grab it, or when it went 3-3, just say, right,
kill it,
no more, get a point then. Do you know what I mean? That was surprising, because it was the type of thing that would happen to a young team.
Which we weren't.
That's right, and full of experience. So
looking at that team, right, from obviously the team we talked about, when you named then your 8-9 team, had you had gone up and kept all those players, how do you reckon you would have done in that season as a one-off? And I know it's a hypothetical one, Because you just reeled off some quality players there.
You know, Rod, that's a great question. Firstly, I don't think we'd have kept all of them. Let's hypothesise for a second, I suppose, and take a little bit of opportunity to think about it. I think that season we won the league, I think we only conceded 34 goals. We were very, very difficult to score against. We were well, you know, and you've got to take a huge amount of credit for that.
We had Colo as well.
We had
Terrific goalkeeper.
It was at the time Neil Alexander was in goal for Cardiff City, and if you had said to me who'd want Colo or Neil Alexander, I'd take Neil Collins all day long.
He was that good.
He was terrific, you know, and how that lad didn't play professional football, and he was a Scunthorpe for a couple of years. I don't think he played in the first team. How that lad didn't play professional football is absolutely beyond me. He's one of the best I've ever seen. Certainly at this level. We certainly were. We were probably out. We'd been a bit leggy at that level, but then it was an 18-team league. Probably if we'd have added 2, 3, 4 players to it, I think we'd have been 11th, 12th maybe. I think we'd have stayed up. Because back in those days there was always two. It's a bit like the English Premier League now. You know, there's always 2 or 3 clubs that are going to struggle.
Yeah.
Typically the ones that come up.
Yeah.
For me, it would have just been legs.
Yeah.
You know, Dean Morris wouldn't have gone up. He wouldn't have wanted to travel like that at that stage in his career.
And some probably wouldn't have. Matty would have. Richard Ryan did want to.
Yeah.
You know, Geraint Passmore would have.
But legs, we would have needed to have added legs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, a firm believer that certainly, you know, when you look at how you protect the game in many ways, sometimes you've got to get the ball over the top into the grass beyond and get people running, just to stretch that game and take the pressure off.
Yeah.
I know it's giving possession away sometimes, but you know, you cannot defend on the edge of your box for 90 minutes. No. You just can't absorb that amount of pressure. So you've got to find an outlet, and pace has always been, you know, a great outlet, isn't it?
There's what we've dropped loads of names in here of lads that went and did the business for you in the club. There's one you haven't mentioned, and I'm wondering, have you blocked him out in your mind? Or is there a reason that we haven't yet heard the name Jason Cowan?
I knew that. I knew that was coming. Don't get me wrong. You know, I got a massive amount of time with Jason Cowan, and he was a huge part of what we achieved that year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when I first said to you we should go and get Jason legs, I was talking about back then. When I remember your response initially. And it was fucking mad. You had it right. But when I sort of talked it through with you and I said, look, you know, this is what he did for us at Dennis Powys last year. He's the fittest player in the league, which he was at the time. And I just felt that he would complement the real footballers you'd signed. Do you know what I mean?
He could play a bit, right? He could play a bit.
Christ, he could, yeah. But he was, you know, but he, at the time, he was just absolutely obsessed with his fitness, wasn't he? Yeah. And there wasn't an ounce of fat on the guy, and he just covered 3 players running some games, and it allowed some of the others, the Maxis of the world, to get on the ball and maybe cheat. Yeah,
we had that one incident, didn't we, which you know, we all look back and we solved it and resolved it, and he was back playing.
Hang on, tell everyone what he did, Dai. This is
just the socks.
No, it's better than that.
I don't think that it was a home game. It was midweek, and I think I went to take him off or something, didn't I?
No, you had a pop with him, and rightly so, because I think he just tried to hit a diag into the box when there was no one in there, and he had 2 or 3 simple balls. So you rightfully had a pop at him, and he just ripped the shirt off and walked off, didn't he?
Right, and I said to him, you'll never play for this club again.
That's right. Yeah.
But in fairness, Danny Street was the mediator. Yeah. I think he missed a game. I think he was back playing, and he may miss one, but...
In the end, you settled on a hefty fine.
Yeah,
it was a sizable fine.
A fine and an apology to the squad.
Oh yeah.
An apology to the squad in the change room before the game.
Yeah.
And you know, I was glad we resolved that, because I had a lot of time with Jason. I like the kid. I put an awful lot of me in him in many ways. You know, a bit of a hot head. Not quite wired right at times, but no, he was terrific for us that season.
How did you find him? You know, to sort of to manage or just to be around?
Never a problem. No.
Yeah.
No, To be honest, I mean, it was a good squad. They pretty much were well disciplined. They disciplined themselves in many ways. The beauty with experience is that players who've been around, they'll tend to manage each other. They'll tend to keep each other in check, and you know, that's why you get a good turnout to training, because actually people are knocking on the door, hang on a second, where were you two tonight? You know, we're in this together. Yeah. And if you remember the start of that season, and you know, he was an exceptional player in his time, Neil Davis, and he was our captain, club captain, and we agreed the rules in here, if you remember, right. and the rules were that, because they wanted the squad named on a Thursday evening. Yeah. And so we agreed to do that on the condition that the minute somebody didn't turn up for a game who wasn't in the 16, then we go back to naming the squad an hour and a half before kick-off. And the first game of the season at home, Brintirian, and Neil wasn't in the 16 and didn't turn up. So you know, they set the rules, they broke them. We went back to the tried and tested. But what I did like about that season was the structure of the whole day. Really, you know, we get here early, and they sign the match ball for the sponsor, and sign the match program for the sponsor, and in here and getting all the chit chat out the way, and you know what the plans were for the weekend and what they were going to get up to. And
that signing for the sponsors and stuff, people used to take the piss out of us, didn't they? Signing programs and stuff, and now, well, it's just part of what you do for your sponsors, isn't it? Match sponsors, match ball sponsors. People used to take the piss.
Do you know what?
Now there's clubs in the league Aberdare's in now with match ball sponsors for every game. Like,
what you're saying there as well with it turning up early. I mean, I remember we did it at Lambourne initially. Well, Lambourne we did it first. No, Crossy we did it first. The whole turning up an hour and a half before. You know, people turning up going, "Why the fuck? Why are we here at 1 o'clock?" And you go in actually because of the whole thing about having the chit chat, the turning out, especially across the Ceiliog, the car park to the ground was a fair walk across. The tour, get all the having the chat with the way, and then getting into your mindset at game time. I talk about mine. I do it with the kids. My kids kick off at 10:30. I can have players turning up, and I'll say turn up at 10, and some of them turn up at 20 past. Yeah. In Crocs. Yeah. And so, what are you going to do in 10 minutes? Yeah. But that's to do with their mentality. Just think, I'll just turn up and play.
I think for me it was about trying to be. I think Matty Davis paid us a wonderful compliment that season. He said it was the most professional side he'd ever played for at Barry Town. And when you think when Matty played, and I played in Europe with Cumbraen, for example, and when Gavin Chesterfield says, you know, we've got to do what you do, and Bryn Tyrion, you know, mirrored what we did when we went there. And I like to think that we were almost flag bearers in many ways, and sort of started to set the standard around trying to professionalise what was a very, very loosely semi-professional league. And but people may laugh, but you know, every single game was sponsored that season at 400 quid. And that was part of making sure that, you know, the club was, because people say, well, it was Dai Morgan's money. It wasn't Dai Morgan's money. By, you know, the amount that was going in week in, week out was only 600 quid. And our wage bill on average that season was about 1,100 quid. Yeah. So the club were matching that. So, you know, should never underestimate what the club generated themselves to help realise those ambitions. It wasn't all about, and in fairness, the club kept doing it for seasons and seasons after.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
You know, so there's a misconception out there, I think, that it was all one person's money, but you know, it certainly wasn't.
No,
it certainly wasn't.
So in terms of managing, you know, we'll go back to before that, but I think the key, I mean, you mentioned it on the way up here, Rod, in the car, you know, about, my question is, you know, why did you never come back to managing? And yours was like, you know, was it, would you ever again, or, you know, what?
I think mine, Dai, is probably more a case of, and it was just what I was thinking about in work today is, like for me, I told Gareth 3 years ago that I was finished because I couldn't modern day kids and I wanted to spend time with my boy. I was fed up of going to watch my boy play football and having to leave half an hour before the end to go to a seniors game. Sam's now under 15s, coming to 16s. We're already talking about what happens beyond, and I'm sure there'll come a time where I do get back involved. But I stepped away for that reason. And what I said to Gareth was, have you ever had the itch at any time, a temptation where you thought, I want to go back? And I know it's a long time since you obviously left ENTO, but is there ever a time where you wanted to go back and try and do what you did here somewhere else?
It's a great question. The simple answer is no, and I'll explain why. This is my hometown club. This is my first senior club, and this club is, I'm Aberaman and Aberdare through and through. And I had a half-decent playing career, and that day down in Dinas Powys, when we won the league title, is up there with anything I did in my playing career as one of the proudest moments of my life. And, I've had good success in business, but that day and that achievement and the collective achievement of taking a squad of players, a management team, a committee, supporters my family got massive. My family were more involved that year than ever when I was playing. Mum and dad and brother, sister, and nieces and nephews. And I remember my PA was working behind the bar, and in reality, I've asked myself the question a number of times, and the answer always comes back: I could never match that. So why would you want to go back and do something that you could never match? I came very close to buying Barrytown. Very close coming back to buying Barrytown. When Stuart Lovren had it, we agreed a deal. We agreed heads of terms, and he pulled out. But I wouldn't have gotten as manager. It was a business decision. I've not had a single moment where I thought I want to get back involved with football. People always say to me, "Oh, do you miss it?" I had 21 years as a player. I had Gordon's how many years as a manager. I think I did my bit, and I've enjoyed every second of it. I wouldn't change any of it.
What was the flirtation afterwards, Dai? Because I remember you were kind enough to help me a few years after that with trying to get a strategic plan into what was Llanwern, which is now Newport City. So they're finally getting there.
I do it very well, absolutely.
But I remember you telling me all these clubs that had been in touch. And I've never told you this before. It used to piss me off that all these clubs were in touch with you, because there were clubs that you had absolutely no connection or affinity with whatsoever. And it annoyed me because I thought they just wanted your money. They obviously wanted you as the manager, but they thought you'd come and bankroll them. And that used to piss me off, because I'd just be thinking, it's disrespectful more than anything. Do you know what I mean? You've got people from nearly in England writing to you, coming, and you're thinking, why are you approaching, this man that lives so far away, no connection?
Yeah,
Did you ever feel that? Did you ever feel that with some clubs?
No, I mean, Merthyr sort of made an approach at one stage, and I didn't realise they're the National League North now. They were, and they top of the league. So terrific. And Barrytown have obviously got the good days back. I don't think I ever had I had a conversation with Gavin at some stage about going in and working alongside him. Not as an assistant, but almost sort of supported him with more of the off the field stuff than the on the field.
It's what we call a director of football nowadays, isn't it?
Probably a sporting director, what they call them.
Yeah, director of operations or something.
And I still, there's bits of that were of interest. I wouldn't rule out coming back here one day, not as manager. I don't want to manage ever again. We talked off camera about players. I said to the company I work for now that I do 3 years, and I went there, and that's 2 years ago. And I said part of the reason is just the snowflakey generation that we work with, and the woke situation, and you can't say this, you can't say that, and you have to be inclusive. And I'd struggle in football these days, I think. And actually, I had a conversation with my chief exec just probably a month ago where he said, I want you to stay on for 3 more years. And I said, well, let me do 1 more year, which is what I said I'd do, and maybe we'll have a conversation then and see where we are. But I've done my bit, and I'm content with what I've done. If you'd have said to me at 17, when I took up goalkeeping, that I'd be sat here now talking to you and reminiscing about a playing career of 21 years and a management career winning the Welsh League title, I'd have signed that contract there and then.
So Nice segue there, Dai. Well done. So you're 17, you take up goalkeeping. How does that happen? Because I wrote down here, you know, was it like him? He was just, you know, when he was little,
Little fat boy last
he was the little fat boy that couldn't run, so they chucked him in goals.
Okay.
How do you end up in goals? Because if you were 17, that's a bit different.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the absolute truth because it's not as glamorous as that story. So, Cumbark is my home village, Cumbark Royal Stars, you know now. I played under 14 for them as a striker and scored quite a lot of goals. Under 16s, if I could get a game, it was a right back. And I was only about 5'1", 5'2" at 17, and really scrawny. Yeah. And no idea what it was, but I went to train with Aberdare Rovers as a goalkeeper. I'd always sort of messed around with, you know, playing down the field with the lads.
Field boy going in goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And went to Aberdare, and my first ever game in goal was against AFC Llwyd.
Was it?
In a friendly. And I remember buying a pair of gloves. You boys are too young to remember them. They were cloth gloves with a couple of little like a stitched rubber pad on the fingers.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
The sort of...
Yeah, the garden gloves.
The rib thing.
Nowadays, the garden gloves are like it a bit, aren't they? Yeah. I used to have a pair as a kid. They were yellow.
These are green, These are green.
Black bits on it.
And we played Llwyd at Llwyd ground, and we won 5-0, and I saved the penalty.
Yeah.
And I was hooked. And
that moment.
Yeah, that was
so it's three Coid's fault that Aberdare won the league.
And I played, and you know, this is where the whole thing takes off, isn't it? Because, you know, I played 3 years for Aberdare Rovers, and there was a couple of characters there. I was quite small, and with a centre half, Andy's, I knew him as, who was a big lad, and he looked after me. And I always remember getting clattered in one game, and he said to this kid, he said, "You come in when you're our goalkeeper again." The kid never came over the halfway line. You know, that was Aberdare League Division 2, and I signed here after 3 years. So I played about 78 games, I think, in the Aberdare League Division 2, which is, as you can appreciate, is not the greatest standard in the world.
Yeah, it's a great footing, though.
It is good footing for a young goalkeeper.
Yeah, and if I was playing senior football, I was 17, 18, 19 years of age. It was a better standard than what it is now. And I came here, did pre-season training, a guy called Owen Worthington, ex-Merthyr, a Scottish lad, was a manager, and he gave him my chance. And I played my Welsh League debut on the Saturday against Tint Rovers.
Tint?
And I walked out for Cardiff City against Newport County on a Tuesday. And you think, you know, 3 years after putting the pair of gloves on, that's not bad, for the first time ever. Yeah. And a Newport County side, it was at full strength. John Lewis was manager. Dai Abu was playing, Roger Gibbons, and Andy Dillon in goal. Yeah. In fact, Andy Dillon was the only first teamer. He wasn't the only one who wasn't the first team at the time. But what was interesting, there's a lad played up front, and you remember his brother more than you remember him probably. A lad on trial up front for them called Roddy Collins. And Roddy Collins went on to manage Carlisle United and various other clubs. He's the brother of Steve Collins, the Irish boxer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
You remember. And I spent 3 years here. I made 115, 113 consecutive appearances. John Herneman took over. Didn't quite see eye to eye with John. He had some strange views.
You surprised me.
How goalkeepers should operate it. I remember saying, you know, the strikers going to line the wall up. I went, no chance. The striker doesn't go to defender for me free kick.
Yeah. But John's way was John's way, wasn't it? There was no shifting from that. So I never worked with John when he was a manager, but he was the assistant manager to Nicky Tucker and did his prowess when I first went in there. Yeah. And he was very, you know, this is the way we're doing it, and if you disagree, well, couldn't give a shit, because this is the way we're doing it.
Yeah. And, you know, I had 3 years, played every game. Yeah. And then obviously left, and I didn't click with John, and I remember vividly, I remember the phone going at home, you know, it was 1990, wasn't it, pre-mobile phones, and the phone went at home, and a voice I didn't recognise, and David, it's Phil Holmes here from Maesteg Park. He said, you've been recommended to me by Alan Sullivan. Yeah. Now, Alan Sullivan's an absolute legend around here, probably one of the best footballers Wales has ever produced, led to Man United. And his words were, Alan tells me, a bit of a hothead, bit of a nutcase, but actually not a bad goalkeeper. How do you fancy playing in a friendly tomorrow night?
He's got you down to a T in fairness.
Well, absolutely, mate, absolutely. You know. Doesn't have to be a psychologist, though, does he, really? And I
just for our younger viewers, right? just let that sink in a minute now. The process of getting a transfer back then, you got to sit in your house and wait for the phone to ring, or phone someone yourself.
Yeah.
Or write them a letter and post it.
Yeah. Or send a CV.
There's no getting your phone out of pocket while the manager's still naming the team.
No social media.
Put 7 days in, bro.
Yeah. And I played in that game. And interestingly, you talk about working for Pencoed. The goalkeeper at the time was the ex-Pencoed goalkeeper.
Okay.
A guy called Tony Winton. His father Brian was the goalkeeping coach. And I played. I can't remember. We played in the friendly, and I was straight in the first team on the Saturday. And I had 2 great seasons at Maesteg Park, and you know,
that was a giant for a while as well.
Well, I was going to say, you know, I'll tell a story about what happened at Maesteg, and it's a sad story of how you can get it so badly wrong when money becomes a temptation. Yeah. And you know, I was lucky enough to play in the FA Cup. I was lucky enough to play in the FA Trophy. It was a lovely. We used to train twice a week. Phil Holmes, ex-Hull City, ex-Bridgend Town, big, strong lad. And we were a bunch of journeyman lads, really. There was no great star player. Chris Williams was there, who'd been at Merthyr, played against Atalanta in the Winners' Cup, and people like Andrew Radford and Billy Fleming and Paul Evans and Ian Fraser and Martin Gunn. Ryan Priest, rest in peace, bless him, passed away in work some years later. And we, you know, and I always joke about the second season. I think epitomises football, epitomises goalkeeping, really. We've gone to, I can't remember which way around it was, but it doesn't really matter for the sake of the story. We played in the FA Cup, and we've beaten Dawlish 2-1 down there. We've beaten Frome 4-0 at home. And we'd drawn Bath City in the conference at the time, at Twerton Park. And we gave a good account of ourselves, and they turned us over 5-2 in the end. But we gave a decent account of ourselves. They were a good side at the time. And you know, we went to Taunton Town the week after, and we get to travel down. Pre-match meal at the Holiday Inn, just off the junction there, Taunton. Get to the game, get beaten 6-2. So I've let 11 goals in now in 8 days. I'm thinking, I'm not sure where this goalkeeper can laugh. And it's the same season that this group of journeyman semi-pros, you know, rock up at Edgar Street in Heatherford. John Sillett's the manager, George Curtis is the coach. They won the FA Cup with Coventry. They got you know, a couple of Spurs players on loan, and we turned them over 2-1 in the Welsh Cup. And then of course we beat Aberystwyth in the quarter-final 2-0, and that set up the game against Cardiff City. Ninian Park, 1992. Held them 0-0 in the first leg. I think we had a man sent off with about half hour to go, and we were never really in trouble. I think we hit the crossbar, Chrissy Williams at the crossbar. But during the course of the game, I showered and came out of the shower, and Bob Humphries, bless him, wanted to do an interview, and I'm suited and booted and sweating, and you know, it's not the glamorous stuff you see. They just put a camera in your face and check a boom mic in your nose, and we're chatting away, you know, what was your best save tonight? Because obviously I had that short spell at Cardiff in the reserves, and he said, you know, by the way, do you realise you're coming back here for the second leg? So, you know, we've held them 0-0. We know full well the Hedgesford are in the final. Therefore, whoever wins our game is playing in the Winners' Cup the year after. And it turns out that Rick Wright, who was the chairman of Cardiff at the time, had got our chairman, Bob Chapman, pissed and offered him £5,000 to come back for the second leg. So there was an absolute furore over it. We threatened to go on strike. Alan Evans was the secretary of the Welsh FA, and he threatened us all with bans if we went on strike. And Phil Holmes resigned, Brian Winters resigned. And we went back on Easter Saturday with a scratch squad, really. No management staff. 2 of the players were running the team. We had a 0-0 at half-time in the second leg. We gave an own goal away just after half-time. I dropped the bollock for the second one, and we lost it 4-0 in the end. But that for me probably was not the making of my career, but I think the prominence that brought, I had a lot of sort of credit for some of the performances. Set me up really for the rest of my career.
I went to the final. That year.
Oh, did you?
So I would have been watching you at the old National Stadium,
Yeah, it was.
the Arms Park.
It was. Yeah.
They only won the final 1-0, I think. Cardiff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good Cardiff side, you know.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Damon Searle, Jason Perry.
Cohen Griffith playing as well.
Cohen Griffith, Chris Pike.
Yeah.
Carl Dale. Yeah, really good Cardiff side.
Ramsey, I think. Ramsey in midfield, was it?
Boy Mark Jones on loan from Blackpool, from Blackpool.
Yeah.
So, I played against Cardiff about 6 or 7 times in the Welsh Cup. Three times in one season with Eberville.
Is that...
Who winning goals then for City? Gavin Ward, or was that before Gavin Ward?
I think it might be Roger Hansbury.
Because then it grew around that time as well, on there. Can't remember which
there was rumours at the time about whether... I think there was some discussion about whether or not, you know, I may have played a part in Cardiff going forward and whether I was better or not than Gavin Ward, but it never came to fruition.
Yeah, he was already under contract with him.
What did come out of it, and I found out years later, I've never really been able to prove it otherwise, but it allegedly, and I think you have to always be careful with stories around Welsh football, but allegedly Liverpool made an inquiry after the first leg. Yeah.
Liverpool fucking buzzing. You want to take that one, Dai?
Well, I found out 15 years later, unfortunately. And as the story goes, and I don't know how much truth is, I really don't know, the scout was based in Swansea. They made an inquiry, and the club said I couldn't get time off work. And if Graham Souness was manager of Liverpool, I think at the time, and he should come and watch me himself rather than... They want me to go up there for a week on trial. As the story goes.
Make Graham Souness come and watch you.
Exactly. So as you can imagine, that would didn't go anywhere in the end, you know?
Can you imagine Graham Souness walking into that old clubhouse at Maesteg Park back in the day?
I was linked with some strange clubs over the years. Dundee United, flipping Carlisle United, Bristol City, Wolves.
I was going to say, was it any remotely close to home one?
No, other than Cardiff. I think from memory, I'm trying to think of the coach of Cardiff at the time. He was keen. The manager, I can't remember the manager, was less keen. But look, I'm a firm believer. If you're good enough, you make it. And you know, I played with lads who have gone on to make it, the Mark Delaney's of this world, and that's a story. That's a story in itself. That one. I'd settle for it.
It's not been bad, is it? So
and I went on the Welsh Premier. I went to Aberystwyth. I signed into Cardiff first of all.
What was that like? Because we were talking about the junior version of Inter Cardiff or Inter Cable Tel as it became. But what was that like? That was a bit of a club without a massive history, wasn't it? It was like there
was 2 merged clubs, wasn't there? Lake United, I think.
People just like amassed, and all of a sudden there's all these good players.
Max James was the driving force behind it, the driving force behind Pontypridd. Lynn Jones was manager, ex-Merthyr, taking Merthyr to 3rd in the conference. And I signed, I always remember, I signed in some little pub in Morganstown or Radda or whatever it is. And I always remember signing for Lynn that night, and as we walked out, there was Morris dancers outside, and we laughed about it.
To be fair, still like that in Radda now.
Yeah, and then he went and signed George Wood, you know.
Yes. Of course he did. Yeah.
And I've got to say, you know, George, Arsenal, Everton, Hereford, Cardiff, Scotland, World Cup finals with Scotland, on the bench against Brazil.
Yeah.
Absolute legend. He changed my career forever.
Yeah. Why is that?
I had 3 months working with him that summer, pre-season, and he was superb, absolutely brilliant. And we got the mould first game of the season, and Lynn reads the team. Well, first of all, we get the mould, and how on earth they'd ever met the ground criteria, because it was worse than your stadium here. It was awful. And Lynn names the team, and George is in, and I'm not. And let's be honest, you've got a choice between a good Welsh League goalkeeper or a keeper that's played in the World Cup finals for Scotland. And he said to me, Dai, he said, can I borrow your gloves? He said, I thought you were number 1.
That's a good claim to fame, isn't it?
I got to know George quite well. I went home for dinner. And this shows the humility of the man, really, that I went home for dinner one night, and him and his wife, Gail, and he said to me, come with me, he said. And he pulls a box out from under his bed, and in that box is the Brazil goalkeeper's jersey.
Wow.
You know, the rest of us were out on our wall, wouldn't we? You know, gold-plated and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sums up the man, really. But I learned so much from him. I went on to Aberystwyth then, very quickly, and that turned out to be a stellar season. I had Supporters Player of the Year, most appearances, got capped by Wales that year, semi-pro. Spent a couple of seasons there, and Aberdare, Carmarthen, Britain Ferry, Avonlea. I think it was 196 Welsh Prem appearances in total in the end.
Yeah. What was that like, the Welsh semi-pro team? Because it's one of those things that's kind of gone now. Get the occasional Wales C. Jonas does the thing, don't we? Jonas does.
Yeah, it's the same thing, same side. Yeah, it was a one game a season, alternated home and away. We were treated like stars, honestly. Yeah. So we met at a hotel in Gloucester at lunchtime, 12 o'clock on a Sunday. We trained Sunday afternoon, trained Monday afternoon, trained Tuesday morning. Team was announced Monday night. I always remember we were staying a holiday, I think. And we all gathered in like a communal area rather than a meeting room. And Dai Morgan names the team, and I'm rooming with the other goalkeeper, a guy called Neil Griffiths, who played for Conwy. And there was a few of us from Aberystwyth in the squad. You know, obviously go for your teammates, and obviously goalkeeper's name first, didn't they? Yeah. And I heard my name called. I thought, flipping. And I didn't hear the rest of the side. Yeah. I had to go round the rest of the boys after and say, well, you win, you know. Yeah. It's one of those things that, you know, playing for your country is the highest honour. Albeit it was semi-pro, but and you know what, we were treated like we had Welsh tracksuits on the whole time we were there. We had virtually the floor to ourselves in this hotel. We ate wonderfully well, and then we played on the Tuesday night and at Cheltenham, Warden Road. Lost 2-1. We were leading 1-0. I gave a penalty away for the equaliser, and they scored one late on. But Steve Guppy played in that game for England. Oh, did he? He went on to play for Leicester and Celtic, I think.
Yeah, a great career.
Guy called Mark Shale played at centre half and went to captain Bristol City. Kid up front called David Leeworthy, he'd been at Spurs. It was the year that Wycombe won the conference. The Wycombe Wanderers players and the Martin O'Neill. Yeah, it's one of those nights. You know, it was a one-off. I obviously only had one cap, but it's one cap more than I ever thought I'd get, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, obviously a fond memory. I can see the way you tell the story.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And because part of being at Aberystwyth, I think, was Aberystwyth were virtually always on TV because of the Welsh language aspect. Yeah. Did a lot of radio and TV interviews around the time, and it was a good time to be around Welsh football. There was a real buzz around Welsh football the first year of the Welsh Prem. The title race went right down to the wire. We were right in it to the end. We finished third. Cumbraen won it, obviously, and went on to play Cork City in the European Cup. Lost over 2 legs, but it was a great time for Welsh football, and it's great to see the way the league's gone on and the exposure it gets now. And you know, TNS last year, having that run in Europe, and you know, 2-0 against Fiorentina, that's just unheard of, isn't it? You know.
What do you make of it now? Welsh football in general, Welsh domestic football, because you know, back when you finished here as manager, you had some strong views about it wasn't going in the right direction and that sort of thing. What do you make of it now?
Yeah, I put a paper together at one stage, a bit of a blueprint for the future, and a lot of that was around building community links, and I think that's what they've done. I think Noel Mooney's been a great appointment as Chief Executive of the Welsh FA. I think he's got a vision. He's prepared to invest. Obviously, we've moved a lot towards 4G, 3G, 4G pitches, which I think is inevitable in many ways in this country. It's not great for the game personally, but no, I don't like it myself. I think to just to survive in terms of having an all year round. Mike Harris at TNS has done an extraordinary job. You know, he's probably he should be the one that they take all the advice from. He's built the club there. He's built a sustainable club. They've got a facility there that supports the running of the football club, and he's done a terrific job. And the results last year on the field, particularly in Europe, were absolutely superb. Yeah. And I think the domestic game in terms of Welsh Premier League, I watch a bit of it. It's a physically stronger league than it probably was. Yeah. I'm not sure it's technically that much better than it was back then. But maybe looking back with rose-tinted glasses, possibly. Everyone says that.
Dean Morris was like it when he talked about his Tom Pentra team.
Yeah.
We'd smash Great Trace.
But there's some lads in that, some lads playing now, and when you look at the lads that sort of step into the Welsh Premier League from pro clubs, whether they're on loan or whether they're permanent signings. They don't get it all their own way. I don't think the gap. I think Mark Delaney's a prime example of that. Really, I don't think the gap. If you're at the higher end of playing ability, the gap to pro football isn't. Will Evans is a prime example with the Newport scoring for Mansfield now, and the gap to the Premier League in England is massive. But then it's massive for clubs in the Championship, let alone. So yeah, I think Welsh football's in a good state. I think Craig Bellamy's doing a great job in the national team.
Enjoying watching it.
It's like watching basketball.
Yeah.
What
would you make of it?
We'll score 4, you'll score 5.
Well, he's come out though, and Craig, and said when they went to Belgium, he said everyone's saying to me, sit in. I'm not sitting in. We're having a go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well then, tell me, Dai. So take yourself back now. You're a goalkeeper, and let's say you're playing here, and on Saturday you've got a new manager, and in walks someone with a clipboard and says, right, this is how we're going to take goal kicks from now
no,
on.
I know where you're going with this.
And the fullback's going to take the goal kick and he's going to pass it square to you, and you're now going to be threading balls into a centre midfielder. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, one, I think it's a different skill set for goalkeepers altogether. And I compare goalkeeping now a bit like wicket-keeping.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had to be a good gloveman.
Yeah.
Who could pick a bat up and know which end of the bat to hold.
Yeah.
Wicket-keeping's gone the other way. They're batsmen who can keep wicket.
Yeah, sure.
And I think goalkeeping's going the same way. And I think they're working on percentages that how many saves a typical goalkeeper have to make in a game. Do you have to be an out-and-out gloveman to do that, or can you compromise somebody who's got a bit of good feet and can knock the ball around? I watch games around people sometimes, and people go, "Oh, get it forward," and why are you going back? I get the whole bit about trying to pull teams out of shape and trying to create space and trying to play between the lines. I think when you see fullbacks tapping the goalkeepers and the goalkeeper knocking it 30, 40 yards from the midfielder, well, why did he knock it 30, 40 yards directly from the goal kick? Doesn't need the fullback to pass it to him to do that. There's a real risk and reward, I think, approach to the way clubs are playing now. And Southampton tried to do it last year with Russell Martin in the Premier League, and I couldn't adapt quick enough,
No, but there's a bit of kickback at the top level now, isn't there, from a lot of top ex-players that are saying, other than the very best, you're not good enough to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the levels, even the levels you played at Welsh Premier League, or, when you were here as a youngster at Aberaman as it was? Because there's teams at this level trying to do it. And what would your response be as a goalkeeper? Because as a manager, you wouldn't subscribe to it. You'd be like, don't talk shit. But as a goalkeeper, you've got a manager comes in and says, oh, this is my philosophy. Our sweeper is dying. He's going to touch the ball more than anyone on the pitch. What are you going to say to that?
Well, first of all, I look at the pitch and say the pitches because I just think somewhere in the darkest valleys, Pontlotting us in on a Tuesday evening, in the middle of winter, the pitch is not going to be conducive to stroking the ball around. The players haven't got a good enough touch. Players haven't got enough distribution, and actually the receiving player has got to be clever enough to go and find the space to receive the ball and take it on the half turn, because the whole purpose is that you're trying to move the game up the field, aren't you, and then taking the ball in. The minute you start running the players have got to make decisions as to whether to engage or to back off. I think Semenya's got a great goal on the weekend, didn't he, running from his own half, and those decisions are crucial, because, as you know, once you get anywhere near that penalty area, you just can't make a challenge any longer, especially the camera. I think there's a time and a place for it. Interestingly, I watched the Arsenal Man United game on yesterday. It seemed to be an awful lot more long ball than normal. People putting into channels. I get that. And Boom was typically a channel runner.
That must be why I enjoyed it.
Ollie Watkins, the way Villa play, they will always try and find the grass in between. They'll play between the centre half and the full back, and Ollie Watkins will run the shoulder of the centre half. That's what his game is. I think it depends, It depends who you're playing up front, depends what system you're playing, but in reality, keep possession. But do you need to be tippy-tapping around your own penalty area? Wales did the Robert Page. We had an awful lot of possession in the Robert Page, but went absolutely nowhere.
Deep in
went sideways and back in.
Yeah.
I think you're right there. Even down to kids football. Gareth's ref a few games for me with my under 14s, 15s. I'll have a parent at some point will walk past me, say, why didn't the keeper knock his short the centre back? Thinking the centre back might train once a month if I can get him there because he's not playing rugby.
Yeah.
You know, he's not there to try and get the ball, look up and thread the winger. Just protect that and just put it there. Yeah. And you will see people run playing short, saying, well, they're not trained enough to be able to get the ball and run it out on a
Dai's made the key point, though, hasn't he? You know, so we had one last year with Pencoed, and he still goes on about it now, our goalkeeper. He took a goal kick short to an unmarked centre midfielder. Now, his thought process is centre midfielder, decent enough on the ball, in a bit of space.
Back to goal.
But it was in the middle of winter, away from home at Lantwick Vardro, who were really good at coming and putting pressure on the ball. So, got taken out. Of course, we're all shouting and screaming. Is the receiving player good enough? Is the surface good enough? That's not just your ability as a goalkeeper or a right back or whatever to play the pass. It bounces off the shin of the guy that's in there because of the pitch or lack of ability.
And it's also about the player receiver. You know, one of my favourite sayings that we used to do, you know, when we used to do some training, we used to all have a number, remember, and move, because you only pass the ball forward, you can't pass the ball backwards. Yeah. So actually the player receiving is one thing.
Yeah.
But if the other players aren't in a position to receive the ball off him, then where does he go?
I still use that drill now.
Oh, it's a great drill. Absolutely.
I use it like often now because it's that, you know, the lazy player will be behind someone and then there's flicks going on and all of that.
We'll do it again.
It's just, you know, it's amazing. You've shared a dressing room with a lot of different guys. Like, who's the loosest cannon?
Oh, what a question. The loosest cannon?
And you're not allowed to say, looking in the mirror.
I definitely will be.
I remember your last game at Taffswell as a player, Dai. Fucking loose cannon yourself that night.
Yeah.
But you must have, you know, because football change rooms are just filled with characters, aren't they? You know, we've spoken about a few from your championship year as a manager, but
you could have given me pre-warning on that question.
I want people's first reaction. See,
interestingly, there's nobody that springs to mind who was. It depends what you mean with a loose cannon. I mean, I played with Kerry Williams at Carmarthen, and I always remember John Mahoney was the manager at the time, and Ian John was his assistant, and we used to have a team meeting in the players' lounge upstairs before home games, and we're all sat there, and somebody says, well, where's Kerry and Lloyd Davis? No sign of them. Anyway, they rocked up about 20 minutes late with a whippet in tow. Yeah?
A whippet?
A whippet, dog. And where have you been, lads? Oh, I've been on the bookies, you know? And they were more concerned about who was going to look after the whippet during the game than they were about the match itself.
Whose whippet was it?
Lloyd's, I think.
Oh, I was going to put
Lloyd on the street. And Kerry was famous for going down on a Friday night. Because Kerry was a bit like George Best. You know, you couldn't play without a drink in him. You know,
right.
Bless him, great player. Scored against Atalanta for Merthyr, if I remember rightly. And he would go down on a Friday night and tell his missus we were playing a Friday night, and the game would be televised on a Saturday, and it'd be bright daylight. You know, it was that. Oh. I can remember across there's a causeway at Porthmadog, whatever it's called. And going across the causeway, and you got to pay 5 pence to cross it. And you know, on the way to a game, Porthmadog away. And him and Lloyd had betted on which raindrop gets to the bottom of the window first.
Oh wow, that's a bit extreme, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the toughest lads I played with, and it was the Aberdare team I played. It was a guy called Simon Tyler.
Okay.
And he once broke Andy Rainware in his jaw, if you remember.
Did he? I remember mainly, yeah.
But he also broke Derek Brazil's jaw.
Did he?
In a Welsh Cup tie I was playing in.
We're meeting Dell in a couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. Ask him about the elbows. Cardiff City, Aberdare, 1995 or thereabouts.
Right.
And it kicked off in the players' lounge after.
Did it?
Simon was a tough lad. Good striker. Him and Steve Woods together with a great combination for Aberdare.
Yeah.
But I can't think of somebody who was, you know, other than myself, who was completely and utterly bonkers.
Yeah. When I first encountered you at Taffswell, obviously you signed for Nicky Tucker.
Oh, yeah.
I was running the youth team down there at the time. I remember watching the game, and you just this larger than life, this huge wingspan of yours as well, and just, you know, you were a keeper sweeper before they existed, even coming towards the end of your playing days, you know. And just thinking, gee, and then you were in the clubhouse. I just remember you having a presence about you. Do you know what I mean? You just sit in that corner with your missus at the time in the corner there, and just thinking, fucking, he's some personality around you. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
and then obviously you went to the
compliment.
Yeah, it was just.
Paul Giles often said that my ball work, my footwork was probably way before my time.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that was certainly at Carmarthen, where we trained on a very average plastic surface. You couldn't dive around on it. So that season I had at Carmarthen with people like Colin Pascoe, Mark Delaney, and people like that, I was playing out in training.
Yeah.
So I think that helps you touch your ability. And I've been an outfield player as well.
It's like the Porth 1G.
So you know, like 3G.
Yeah.
God.
Well, what did Dom Dwyer say?
It was 0.5.
He said, it's not 3G. It's not 1G. It's like half a G.
It's not even a G.
It was like bone hard concrete, right? And we got up there the one night. So we used to get in the car in Cardiff, and it'd be like 4 degrees or something like that. And you get up to this training pitch in Porth, and it's minus something, right? And
the wind's howling one way to the other, and you're on the top of a mountain.
One day, right? We turned up, and it's frozen, and the frost has already fallen at 7 o'clock, right? Well, we've all travelled, and we're all, you know, so we had to do static passing, static heading, like all this crap all night just to make use of the hour. And we finished off with a 15-minute game of walk-in football.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't played walk-in football?
I have.
It's fucking hard.
It's hard.
It's hard not to, the way you pass it.
I play out walking football rather than in.
You're passing it as though someone's going to run onto it. Yeah. You want to run, and you can't.
It's hard. It's a great level as well, because if you think about football typically, pace is everything.
Yeah.
But if you can't use your pace because you've got to walk, or there's people can walk quicker than others. But I played a couple of times. And I played on Ninian Park once and Pendana Park in Merthyr, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. And that was just before COVID, and just before I moved away.
Trust you can't just do it in a leisure centre. I played at Ninian Park and Pendana Park.
I tell you, got me involved in football was Clive. Clive played internationally over 60s or over 65s.
There's hope for us yet, Rod.
I could be an international. Going for it.
Brilliant.
You talked about earlier. Talked about Richie, and Richie talked on his podcast about it. In terms of negotiations, who would you say is the hardest negotiation you've ever had to do as a player to sign?
What
for you to sign?
That he got
someone? Yes, who's Dai signed? Who was the hardest negotiator with you in terms of what they wanted?
This might surprise you, and it wasn't to do with money. It was to do with. So there was a lad playing. I watched a cup final over here on Mike's Field. I can't remember when it was. It was my first spell in charge. It had been sort of early 2000s. And a lad called Lee Thomas, and I had no idea how old he was. He was a big unit, big lad. And I spoke to Mel, Mel Morgan was my assistant manager at the time, and he knew him. And he was an out-and-out goal scorer. And it took an awful lot to convince him to come here at the time. This ground wasn't built. We didn't, money wasn't really on the table, although he was paid. And I was living in Peterborough at the time, commuting back on weekends, and he took an awful lot of convincing. And what absolutely won it, and I couldn't believe it, and I just dropped into conversation. He was a massive Man United fan. And he didn't know why. I just phoned him out the blue, and he didn't have a clue what, I said, I signed for Aberaman when I was younger, and I got the chance to play against Man United in a testimonial game, and like that he changed.
Right.
And he signed, and he scored 62 goals in 58 Welsh League games.
That's not a bad record, is it?
And he went to Carmarthen. Tommy Morgan signed him at Carmarthen. But he had injuries, constant injury problems with his ankle. But he was tough negotiation in terms of didn't want to come. He was happy to be a big fish in a small pond, playing local league football. You know, I know Richard Ryan mentioned the negotiations. I wanted Richard Ryan, so you know that was not going to be a difficult negotiation. But
sometimes the negotiations without the money is the hardest
Yeah,
one.
absolutely,
We did it
absolutely.
with Lanrummy, trying to convince some players to come in without even having a pitch.
Yeah.
We were almost getting players involved and going, come and have a look, this is where the ground is going to be. And you can go, what the fuck are you talking about? What about that big dip in the pitch sort of thing, you know? And it was, they're actually more interesting for the ones we've had to proper negotiate about. Dino talked about it, didn't he? One of the players he wanted to have a fag.
Oh, Chris Colvin.
Chris Colvin would sign if he could have a fag at half time.
Yeah.
It's things like that that are just random requests.
How did you had a tremendous ratio, I think, Dai, of once you became, before I came up here, I used to call you the vulture. Because once you got a sort of scent of blood, you'd usually get your man if you really wanted him, like you said about Richard. Why did you not manage to get my mate Gazer up here, Gazer Hadjito? Because he was a player, he was very close with Dean Morris, and then you had a couple of goes at getting him up here. Why did that never happen, do you think? For what it's worth, I think the two of you would have clashed immediately.
Well, you know, you just taken the words right out of my mouth. Because what I was going to say is actually, I think you have to have connections with players.
Yeah.
And you have to make that connection when you're talking to them. My full-time job is around business development, sales, and growing businesses. And it's all about relationship building. I think you have to build relationships with people. And you're right. I don't think we would have hit it off. He's an excellent footballer. You know, massively rated him. You can't win the Morgas. You know, Christian Doige didn't manage to get either. He went to Barry, and he went to Barry for nothing, I believe. When I tried to sign him here from Croeso-Caerleon.
Sure.
So yeah,
that's what I'm talking about, vulture though, right? He didn't do anything
Until you've gone.
until we left. Then he was on it like that. Respect, but as soon as we were gone, in he went.
Yeah, gone. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Was it always interested in that? Because we never had the chat, because it was always just right business. These are the players we got, whatever. Because undoubtedly he would have been good enough ability-wise to have enhanced the team that we had up there. But it was just, I have always just thought that he's a very strong personality like yourself, and he's got his views. And yeah, I just got this. I've always had this thing. The two of you would have butted heads.
Yeah, possibly.
You know what I mean?
Possibly.
But
I think in many ways it is about you've got to find somebody you can connect with. You've got to find somebody you can relate to.
Yeah.
Somebody who wants to buy into the ambition, buy into the philosophy, buy into the culture. And you know, we were quite a well-run club, I think, particularly that last season, and in all ways, on and off the field. And I think it was very much about trying to be as professional as we could be in a semi-professional world.
Yeah.
You know, on match days, because clearly, you know, nutrition and the like is difficult to control with players.
Yeah.
You only see them once or twice a week. But
Yeah, it's true. So, what was it ever a striker when you were back when you're playing days where you were like up against him tomorrow? That's gonna be a fucking nightmare. Was it ever anyone like that?
yeah, and we clashed actually. We clashed. We fell out, and there was a lad at Aberdare called Kevin Morrison.
Okay.
I think he's probably the best striker I've ever played with or against.
Right. Okay.
He's certainly up there. He had it all. Left foot, right foot, head. He got a perfect hat-trick against Harvey West. Rumours are he went to Wolves on a 5-year contract, got homesick, came back. Oh, no. A Scottish lad who was living in Aberystwyth. Very, very, very good striker. And someone like Stevie Woods at Evervale. Stevie Woods was a great finisher.
Right.
Terrific finisher.
Is that what you used to be concerned about? Was the sort of finishing ability? Because some strikers are a nightmare to play against. Like Doige's a good example, right? Who went on to obviously play professional. Doige's a goalkeeper's nightmare because at a corner he'll jump higher than you with your hands. Because he's a basketballer by trade. And you know, so not necessarily as good a finisher maybe as some of those guys, but you know, if you face 15 dead balls during the game, he could jump higher than you 15 times, and it makes you hesitant. You know what I mean?
The game was quite different though, Gab, when I was playing. I think in many ways, certainly the set pieces where the rough and tumble is going to happen.
Yeah.
Clubs size didn't tend to flood the 6-yard box that they do now.
Right.
They didn't tend to flood near post, back post, and certainly the rule when I was playing. I mean, all this punching nonsense is
it breaks me, mate.
If you can get your hand to punch it, you can get your hand to catch it. And you know, I could probably count on one hand how many times I punched the ball in my career. Yeah. And the rule was the 6-yard box is yours. Yeah. Come and get it. Come and take it. Yeah. You know, I'm not small myself, so you could be a little bit more imposing, I guess. But there was nobody. There was a lad at Merthyr, when Merthyr were in the Welsh League, called Anthony Hopkins, and he was a brute, and he would put it about. Right. But I only played. They were in the Welsh League, so Merthyr's second team at the time. Yeah. And he was a real handful. But yeah, I can't think of anybody that comes to mind. You thought when I'm thinking, oh God, you know, I'm gonna get. I probably picked up more injuries from my own players in training than I did on a match day. What
about managers? What about when you were facing down? So you've become a manager now. You've obviously learned your trade. You've built your team. You've built the club, and you're obviously at the higher end now of the Welsh League that you then go on to win. What sort of managers would make you think, do you know what? I've got to have an early night tonight. I've got to get up. I've got to have my Weetabix, and I've got to get my head on this today because this guy could do me some damage. Was there any like that?
Yeah, there's a few managers I have a huge amount of respect. Mark Jones is one of them you mentioned earlier. Yeah. You know, I came across Mark when he was managing Maesteg Park. He was certainly somebody who could get the very best out of a fairly average group of players. Yeah. Franny Ford. I tell the one probably that became my nemesis in many ways. And he managed Pontypridd, and when Pontypridd were trying desperately to get into the Welsh Premier League and out the Welsh League, I'm desperately trying to think of his name now.
Ryan
Nichols. Ryan Nichols just seemed to have the curse over me. Yeah. And those games were always feisty, on the pitch, off the pitch. But we went toe to toe a couple of times. Gavin was a very, very shrewd manager, Gavin Chesterfield.
With Ryan Nichols, though, what do you mean that he seemed to have it? Or do you mean that you worried about him tactically? No. Or that he would get his team up for it? Or
they played in his mould, I think, in many ways. Okay. You know, he was quite a feisty character. I think he had a good career himself. Gavin was probably the master tactician. Yeah. I think Franny Ford always did well at Bryn Tyrion. There wasn't anybody I thought, you know, and actually when I look back, you know, when we produced one of the biggest shocks probably in Welsh Cup history in 2002 when we beat Aberystwyth up there, we were reminiscing about it the other week. I'd actually gone to watch them, but I'd also had them watched. Worked out tactically what they did, and they had a main World Cup squad. They had Stuart Slater there, ex-West Ham. They had Jason Drives there, ex-Newcastle United. They had Frank Bennett, ex-Southampton, a manager, been at Man City as under-21 manager, Frank Regan. Wage bill on the day was something extortionate. They were unbeaten at home all season. And I knew they hadn't watched us. Yeah. And, you know, we met here. We had a pre-match meal in Carmarthen. Matthew did a bit of a team talk. Matthew Cable did a bit of a team talk on the bus outside Aberystwyth. We got there. They weren't there. We were well prepared. I watched them, and their game very much came from Jason Drysdale at left back. So he was very much the Mark Hazelwood type player. Okay. Excuse me, pick the ball up, ping it well, and decided to play three up front. But I had three lads there. So Lee Thomas played down the middle, I mentioned earlier, who's a brute of a lad. I played James Rowlands on the right-hand side, who'd been at Brighton as a kid, the chairman's son. And I played Anthony Jenkins on the left-hand side, who'd been with Merthyr into Cardiff and Cheshire United. And the principle, the instruction to James was simple. I don't care if you don't touch the ball all game. Just don't let him get his head up. All you do is just sit on him. He's at left back. Go and play high up the park. Go and sit on him and pressure him. And you know what? we took the lead not just before half time. They didn't have a shot on target, and I mean, it was all over the press the next day, and where the Western Mail phoning us up. And
I mean, that's a huge upset, isn't it?
Oh, it was massive. I mean, the manager resigned a couple of days later, and most of the players left and went to Clevedon Town or one of those clubs, or Western Superman.
Yeah, Western. Yeah, more likely Western, I would have said back then. Yeah.
And so, you know, and they hadn't paid us the respect of having us watched, because we played Taswell the week before, and they hadn't watched us, and you know, they turned up a bit late, and you know, you think, we're up for this, and we were terrific on the day. And when I look back, you know, we had a 17-year-old at right back, myself and Matthew, I was manager, he was player manager. Luckily, we both played in the Welsh Prem. Yeah. The three lads up front were all good footballing brains in that sense, even Jenko, you know. And we had Dai Abu who'd been a pro in the middle of the park, so we had a little bit of experience on the pitch as well. Our wage bill on the day was 140 quid, and theirs was about 4,500 quid. Yeah,
which in today's money would be,
exactly. That was 2002. That was.
Yeah, exactly. So it was for me, you know, with that. You mentioned him, Gavin Chesterfield was the one for me. He always just used to do something that I hadn't predicted. Yeah. And you could tell not only had he spotted it, but they'd worked on it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Just sometimes he went forward up front and long, and you're like, Gavin doesn't play. And then another time he'd do something else, and he'd have, you know, how's he going to deal with my number 10? And he'd have the centre half come in on him. So then we'd prepare to say, right, the centre half's going to come out there, so we're going to run out to in, and we're going to play that way. And then he'd do something else that day. Do you know what I mean? And it was fucking annoying, if I'm honest.
Well, I can remember a lad at Porthcawl with Jen when they were playing at Porthcawl, and Drew, I don't know the manager's name. You know, this lad was the coach there, and he became known as Clipboard Dave.
Dave Adams.
And he's now technical director of the Welsh FA.
Dave Adams was in
Dave Adams,
same year, same university as me.
He's done brilliantly well.
Yeah, he's done very well.
Yeah. Drew Phillips.
Yeah. Drew Phillips, that's it.
They were throwing the money around at the time, that's for sure.
People calling him Clipboard Dave, because he was the first to have a clipboard.
Oh, yes.
Every bugger's got one. So, Dai, it feels like it would be wrong not to talk about you and your time in football and everything else without mentioning your liking of a night out back in the day, shall we say. If you wanted to find Dai Morgan back around the Aberaman time, where would I find you, Dai? Three times a week, something like that? Where would I have found you? In Cardiff City Centre?
Go on, you tell me.
Park Plaza is where you would have found Dai.
I thought you were going to say like... Well, yeah, I thought you were going to say, but
Park Plaza, you could...
Later on in the evening, Park Plaza,
Yeah. So, you know, you used to enjoy yourself. And you know, but team nights out and stuff like that, you were always very much up for them, weren't you, as well? A bit of bonding and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you got to work hard, play hard, and I think, you know, at the time we had the business, and you know, we'd go out after work, certainly on a Friday and about on a Saturday, and I've always enjoyed being out and being about and being social, and you know, for me, you've got to have some downtime, you know, even at our level of playing the game. There's got to be a little bit of bonding. You know, we look back on you know, we had a few nights out over that season. I can remember meeting in the yard a few times, and you know, one player remained nameless, wife used to turn up every time, and you know, what players' night out and one wife.
Same when he was at Dennis, don't
worry. And not that any of the players were complaining, mate, because no. Yeah, but I think you know, you've got to mix it up, and I think you build those relationships. And those relationships have to extend beyond playing sometimes, and there's also a bit of reward for me as well. I certainly we won the title. We had a particularly good night out. We had certainly a good night out in here after we beat Tom Prenter to confirm promotion. And that was a great bit about this place, you know. It was a new club and a new bar, and prior to that we used to go to the Rock, and a great welcome there from from the people there, but actually wasn't her own club,
Yeah.
and it was lovely that year just to celebrate in her own club. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think nights out are going to be part of the fabric. You've got to work together, and it's I talked about that season, and it wasn't a group of 15 or 16. It was a group of 21 players, 5 management staff.
We talked about
committee behind the scenes.
We talked about it last week, didn't we? The whole thing with, now, modern day now, you go in a dressing room, there's music banging, you can't even hear yourself think.
Yeah.
Your team night out is 6 or 7 players, you're doomed from the start. We talked about the fact that we played in a great group on a Sunday who played together, socialised together. We had it at Llanrymney, we had it at Cross y Ceiliog with the boys, where everyone bought in and everyone was on a team night out, and everything like that. And it is vital.
That's people buy into a culture, isn't
success.
it? Yeah, but that's what that's you created that. That doesn't happen by accident. That's part of what you guys would have done at Llanrymney in terms of, or Cross y Ceiliog, in terms of building a culture where people feel comfortable, they want to do that. And it's not every week, but it is a bit of a reward, and it is a bit of taking the opportunity to get to know people in a slightly different environment than what you typically knew them in.
Yeah, it's so with 16 years under your belt now since that night, you'll probably be able to answer this question with a bit more perspective now. But what is the best football memory that you have? Because you've been through an awful lot there just tonight. I mean, there's some that you probably haven't even spoken about. But what's number one?
Yeah, that is one hell of a question, and I ask myself it regularly. And when if I rattle through just things like playing in the FA Cup, just so you played in the FA Cup is special. Playing the FA Trophy is special. Right, to play Welsh Cup semi-finals, get man of the match in the Welsh Cup semi-final, to play against Man United, to play for your country, to win the Welsh League title, to make 169 league appearances. I remember George Wood saying, don't forget, these are league appearances in the National League.
Yeah.
But when I put it all together, most of that was about David Morgan. The memory for me is winning the league.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't just about David Morgan. That was about a collective group of people that worked together to make it happen. And this great facility, and I think for me, when I look back, and the proudest thing I've done, I brought this is my club, I've been around this since 1987, and I brought something here. They never won a trophy in 117 years, and we go and win the Welsh League title. And to have been the figurehead of that, albeit with some great people around me, and a great playing squad, a great management team, and a great committee to work for. That's probably my fondest memory of football, I think.
So knowing you now, the guy that believes anything is true and goes and makes it fucking happen, you're now back in Wales. Yeah. And so, tell us what's going on there, because you've recently moved back. Raglan?
Yeah. I spent 5 years in East Yorkshire. Changed jobs about 2 years ago, which brought me back. So I was working in Hull, or in Humberside, and changed jobs about 2 years ago. The company's based in Solihull, but the job's based from home. And really, there was nothing to keep me up there particularly, and family and friends are down here, and mum's 84 now, and I was looking to get back, and I probably at the start of this year thought, right, I'm going to make a concerted effort. I've been up there 5 years, and yeah, I had a good social life up there in some ways, but I think, ultimately you have to come back to your roots. I wanted to be in commutable distance to the office, because I went to the office 2 days a week in Solihull. And I was looking at Raglan, Crickhowell, Monmouth, Abergavenny. Couldn't really find it. Couldn't find anything I particularly wanted. Didn't find the estate agents particularly proactive either. And in a moment of madness, stumbled across a pub in Raglan. It's called the Ship Inn, and it's about 500 years old. There's not a single level floor in the whole building. The doors are only about 5'8" high, so I smack my head on something every day. But I've been there 3 months. I still work full time. This is very much a sort of project, maybe a project again to prove people wrong. People say the hospitality industry is dead and the pub game is dead, and I think, you know what, I think I can take my business now and make this work and do something with it. And yeah, 3 months in, it's doing okay. It's doing well. We're making progress. It's a 5-year project probably in many ways, and I won't take it on after the 5 years. I've already said that to the local people. I'll set it up hopefully that somebody can take it on and do something with it longer term. But it's I've had an astonishing welcome. It's a lovely part of the world. It's a little village, plenty going on, and the welcome has been absolutely superb. And it gets me back home. Get to see mum and brother and sister more often, and nieces and nephews, but also get a chance to come here. I came here for the Cup game. I might well come back for the game on Saturday in the Welsh Cup as well. So yeah, there's plenty going on. It keeps me out of mischief. I done a fair bit of chefing as well. So I've cooked commercially for the first time.
I was just about to say we'll come up for food until you talk.
Cooking's always been a passion. But cooking for yourself and cooking for a table of 14 that walk in, all 14 want something different. Is test your own skill set and your own resilience. And I've got a full-time chef, but obviously you can't work 7 days a week. So I've done a bit of chefing as well. I've thoroughly enjoyed that. It's work in progress. We'll see where it takes me, really.
I just love it because obviously I'm from the leisure industry, hospitality myself, and like you say, that is the common thing. Pub trade is dying and all of this, and I just thought to myself when you said, of course he's opening a fucking pub, of course he is. Do you know what I mean? Just that sort of, I'm not going with convention. I'm going to do it my own way.
And I'm a firm believer that business is business, and it's about customers, it's about products, about service, about the environment.
Service especially.
It's about the relationships you build, and it's just taking that skill set that I've used since 1996, and I built businesses in private, public and third sector, and I've been doing it since almost 30 years, and applying it in a different context, and it may or may not work. And
so there's no chance at all we're going to hear Dai Morgan's getting involved with Monmouth Town then, is there? Only up the road?
Absolutely no chance. However, one of my regulars is involved with Aberdare Town.
Oh, really?
So he's already trying to talk me into going to a couple of games. But
I mentioned Monmouth is Lee Robson's joining us in a few weeks' time for a chat. So.
Well, he's done wonders there, hasn't he?
Absolutely,
and, and did it in a different way. But no, I going back probably. How long we're talking? Probably an hour. My days in football are gone in terms of being involved. Yeah, I might get involved in the administration side or as a spectator and fan, but I'm not ever going back in the dugout. But I think who's the famous rower that said, "If you ever see me in a dugout, shoot me"?
Oh, that was Redgrave.
Redgrave. So yeah, I give you permission. If you ever see me in a dugout as a manager or coach, make sure you shoot me. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll hold you to that, mate. Somehow. I think you do mean it. I didn't always believe it with you, but I think you mean it now. And of course, for people who are listening to this conversation now, I think when they hear you explain why, I think that's pretty sound reasoning, isn't it? Yeah. How could you ever top that?
I can't.
Yeah. Great stuff. Well, thank you very much, mate. It's been a pleasure. And
thank you.
I've had a fascinating insight into things that were happening all around me I had no idea about. So it's been fascinating, mate, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My bad.